One day I get this message from him and, what's it going to be? And he sends me this message and he says, I found something extremely valuable. I'm like, okay, was that a business tip or what? And he said, imagine you could be with a woman and know within 90% certainty whether it would be stable or end in divorce. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Love and All the Things. And I am super excited today to have a chat with the awesome Lloyd Thompson. Hi Lloyd, how are you doing?
I'm very well. It's a Friday. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for having me here.
My absolute pleasure. So before we get going, I'll give a bit of context and share a little bit about you. And then we talk about the true mistakes that you found in relationship and that applies to business. So Lloyd Thompson spent over 20 years in the corporate world in technical and leadership roles, and he just wanted out. So he thought about how he could use his people, project operations, and process improvement skills elsewhere, and discovered an opportunity to provide his director of operations services on a fractional basis to smaller non-corporates, which he finds more nimble and interesting. I would agree with that. With his team, he serves clients ranging from e-commerce, education, real estate, to a variety of coaching and agency businesses. Lloyd absolutely loves to support online businesses. Things move much quicker, and he can help them with simple and effective solutions distilled from the very best frameworks that worked in corporate land without the red tapes. He's also published a book, The 9 Ways to Leave Your Day-to-Day Operations, to help business owners know where their blind spots might be and how a director of operations can help them if they want to delegate these ways to someone else. So welcome, Lloyd.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. So the title today is 3 Relationship Mistakes I've Made and Lessons in Love and Business. And this all began when, I have this client, and like many of my clients, they become friends eventually. And so when he sends me a message, I just don't know if it's going to be work related or if it's going to be social. And so if I just want to paint a picture of this particular client and friend, he's a wealthy guy and he travels a lot and he is a bit of a playboy. And it sounds like perhaps what many men want. And he surrounds himself with beautiful people, beautiful ladies, but I have a feeling it's temporary and something's missing for him. Anyway, one day I get this message from him and, what's it going to be? And he sends me this message and he says, I found something extremely valuable. I'm like, okay, was that a business tip or what? And he said, imagine you could be with a woman and know within 90% certainty whether it would be stable or end in divorce. I'm thinking, I know this guy. Is this a joke? So I then get a YouTube sent to me, a YouTube link. And the title of the YouTube is Making Marriage Work by Dr. John Gottman. So I'm thinking, okay, well, this looks like the real deal. So I message him, is this a joke? No. Okay. So I then ask her, I've just been starting to date someone around the time I got the video. And I said, is this safe to watch with her? Will there be consequences if we watch this thing together? And he said, definitely. Anyway, a few days later, I sent him a picture of me and my girlfriend watching the TV. And I'm like, I'm all in now. This is the point of no return. And so what the video was about was 3 things that the author or creator of the video referred to as the masters. What these masters, people who are masters in relationships, who have been in there for a long time, almost lifers, what they did that made the relationship work, just 3 main things. And the absence of these things would be a very strong indicator that the relationship would fail. So this was super interesting to me. So I watched the video, and what became apparent to me is that, while I do, I have failed in every single one of these at some point in a relationship, and I can see sometimes I catch myself doing it now, or the absence of one of these things now. But the irony is each of these items also applies to business as well. But the irony is, on the business side, I do these things pretty well. So why don't I do it well in my personal life? So that's how this came about. And so what I wanted to share with you is to just go through each one and look at it through a lens of relationship and business.
Well,
So
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear all about it. And it makes absolute perfect sense, because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Like I share that all the time. You know, your brain has a small, very small capacity to process all the information it's provided with at all times. So it has to cut down and make some decision. And if you have a success formula for one thing, you're just going to apply it across the board.
yeah.
Now, the reason why it would work in some areas of life more than in others, it's the security factor in general. It's a safety thing. But yeah. So what's the first thing? What's the first lesson?
Okay, number one. Are you on the edge of your seat? Number one is turning toward. So what does this mean? Well, I can tell you where the absence of this thing plays in. For me, it's like, here I am at my computer and she's over here and she might be talking to me and I'm focused on, I don't know, some kind of task. I'm a bit focused and she's talking to me and I'm like, you know, I'm just kind of listening, kind of giving a little bit of a response. But turning toward is about, you know, turning right round, giving them 100% of the attention, full face, everything. And go, okay, yeah, tell me about it. Like, what is it really? And this is such a small thing, but when you think about it, it's like, they're not listening to me. Like, what kind of connection is that? So that was the first thing, and it's so simple. And yeah, you know, I've definitely caught myself doing it. So now I'm aware of it. I'm like, okay, let's, you know, if I'm going to be on my laptop and someone talks to me, either I'm going to say, hey, look, hold, give me 1 minute. I'm going to finish this. Then I'm going to close the laptop and I'm going to give you 100% all in or not at all. So that was the first lesson. And I then look at this in the business sense. And I talk to people about how to do this is active listening. So, you know, someone's talking to you, and active listening is the art of not just taking it in, but showing them that you've heard them and that you've listened, and playing back or paraphrasing things and say, oh, is this true? Is this what you mean by this? And by doing that, the person really feels 100% heard. And this is super powerful for many things, like actually particularly in conflict or negotiating, because a lot of the time the other side just want to make sure they've been heard, and it can really break down tense situations. Bonus points if you've got the discipline to listen to the other side first, because quite often, you know, you want to put your point, I want to put their point, and you're dying to say, this is my side of the story. But the real art is to just suck it in for a minute and then just, you know, listen to the other side, get them to tell you their side. And a lot of the time, just by having the other side make themselves heard can really like ease things over. So isn't that ironic? You know, in my personal life, this is something that I just seems so obvious, but I don't give that person the full 100%. And then, but in business, I'm all about, hey folks, you should exercise active listening. So that was the first way.
And I think it's because, you know, you in the communication, a lot of people listen to respond. They don't listen to actually listen to take in, as you were saying, what the other person is saying. And a lot of the communications gets lost also because we have different ways of communicating. So the 5 love languages. So for example, and I always give the example with my ex, he would say a lot of words, say how beautiful and how much he loved me, but I was just like, for me, it's just words. So
what's your love language then?
I'm quality time and touch. So it could be just 5 minutes of a big hug and that was done. But for him, it was like, you're all over me, like, stop it. I really don't love me. So it's being aware of that. But the essence of it all is really being present and in the relationship. Because when we stop listening, like in the very first phase, in the honeymoon phase of the relationship, we tend to pay more attention of those signals and be more present in the relationship. But past a certain amount of time, we take it for granted almost. It's like, yeah, right. Yeah. It's just background noise and I'm here anyway. So I'm doing the job in a way.
Wow. I'm so glad you brought that up about love languages, because I feel like that plays into the second point. So do you mind if I bring that up? It's like, so the second topic, again, these sound so obvious, but like how often do I get it wrong? Appreciation. So just, you know, the relationship mistake for me is like leaving small things unsaid that are true. Like if you have feelings for someone, why don't you just say it? And for me, my love language is action. It's not words, it's action. Like I'll do something for them. I'll pick them up from here, or I'll go and get them something, or, I'll feed the dog, or, whatever it is, I'll go and do all the small things. But for some people, if their love language is appreciation or the words, it sounds so easy to me. It's like, for me, it might just be an unsaid thing. It doesn't have to be as big as the big L word, but it could be something as, oh, you look nice, or oh, I like it when you did this, or I really appreciate it when you did so and so, and I think it's so easy. Why don't I do that all the time? Like, it doesn't have to be a massive thing. It can be like something simple. So that one was like, oh, okay, it's so obvious, but this is what the masters do regularly. And I think about this older couple who are my previous neighbors, who got married in their 20s and they're still together, and one's in the 70s and one's in the 80s. And when I spend time with them, I just see how they interact, and I can just tick off all of these things, particularly the appreciation and the compliments. And so there we go. That's the relationship side of it. And I know the theory, but then you've got to put it into practice. So moving on to the business side of it, the business side of it, I think, is about providing feedback. And so when someone in my team, or if I'm advising someone in another business, if someone does something that they've done well, then I openly praise it as much as I can, especially if it links to one of the company's values. As I would, if it's in a virtual sense, like in a chat channel, it's like, hey, folks, like, look at this amazing piece of work, or so-and-so took the initiative to do this. It's like praising, showing that appreciation so everyone sees it and they feel great and appreciated, not just sitting on that thing. And it could have been it could just be something small, but those things can really make someone's day. But the flip side is also true in business. Is like, if someone does something that's not so good, or it's something that's against the values of the company, or something they need a feedback on for an improvement, let's say, then you've got to go straight away. Like, the longer the time is between the event and the feedback is provided, I normally go with something like, look, I've observed this behavior, and it had this effect, but what do you see? Like, what would you do if you were me? Or, I play that feedback out to them. And when I think about the other side of that in relationships, I think there's something there too. And I can think about one of the mistakes I made really early in my first long-term girlfriend when I was 17. I must admit, one of my traits is I'm quite conflict avoidant, and you think, oh, that's great, Lloyd, you're conflict avoidant, you don't like conflict, but actually it's a necessary evil, because otherwise things mount up. And so with her, she might say or do things that I would disagree with, and just to avoid the argument, I just go along with it, But over time, and I'd think, oh, okay, well, maybe there was a fair balance here. Maybe she is right. It's not worth the effort. I'll just give this up. But then over time, it would get to some real disagreement. And in the back of my mind, there would be all of these things. I'm like, well, at least there was 5 in the bank there where I'm sure I was right. Like, case closed, 100%. And I just sat on it. And so I think it's important to, when those things pop up, just deal with them there and then. It doesn't, when I say conflict, I'm not talking about, a heated argument or something like that. I'm talking about discussing the way you feel and then resolving it. So yeah, the second point of the story, appreciation, and but I think there's the other side of that too, which is the communication for the goods and the bads, or the opportunities.
I think honesty and authenticity is key, like in both ways. And if you bring up genuinely every day how things are going, then you can handle them as they come, rather than, as you said, like letting it all simmer and bubble up, and then one day it becomes this big thing out of nowhere. And that's where some couples split up and they never saw it coming. I'm like, but you've been living together for 20 years. How did you not see that coming? And that's again from taking it for granted, or they understand, they know assuming that they can read your mind. No one is a mind reader, because you said that doesn't mean necessarily you have to voice things, you have to express things, the good ones and the bad ones. And I think for people who are people pleasing, who are always nice, well, if someone makes me a compliment and I know that I definitely failed, and someone said, no, but that was great, I'm like, I don't have much respect for that comment, because it's not true. You know,
And
I'd respect someone who tells me the truth, even if it's not, I'm not happy with it, because I'm like, oh yeah, I can trust that person and I respect that person, because yeah, they say what they think.
And that person who's been sitting on those things for a while, of those things that have been brewing, might start feeling resentment. And it's just such a nasty emotion.
Absolutely.
Like, resentment is like creating a poison for someone and drinking it yourself.
Yes.
It's just, why do that? So yeah, it sounds simple, but yeah, appreciation, like I really love leading with the positive, but yeah, the second side of that is just not letting things brew and just dealing with them as they come up.
I think it's easier to express if it's a little bit everyday, because you might be feeling, I love that person so much, and then it's a big thing to say I love you. Where if you say every day, oh, I like when you do this, you look nice when you wear that, or I love when you do this and that,
Yeah,
and then
habit
it comes
forming.
naturally, like it's a build up, it's a compound effect of love.
Yeah, and think about all the points you accumulate on the way.
Yeah. There you go.
I like that side of it. If it's become, almost a habit, not in a robotic way, but it's like, just showing that appreciation every day. Yeah, I love that point. So the third lesson I made here, and this one actually wasn't so obvious to me. And in the video that I watched, he referred to it as love maps. What on earth is a love map? And this is really about looking into the future with your partner or other half, and understanding what they want and being able to make it so that you both can achieve your goals wherever you're going, like long term. Like, do they want kids? Is it that they want to travel to somewhere? Do they want to build a business or something together? Or how do they spend their money? Like all of these things. And I think if you know where you're going in the far distance, then all of the little minutiae things that you might have conflicted can release if you know why, like what motivates them. And it's those bigger things. You can work around those small things and they just get released because you're focusing on those broader visions of getting there together, wherever it is you want to go. And so I can think about this in my own life. And this is actually not an area so much I've made a mistake. It's because I'm pretty upfront. And if I think about my current relationship, one area where we actually align pretty well is that for me, I don't value spending money on material things so much. For me, it's about experiences and travel. And material things don't generally spark joy. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it, but I just don't get the thing. Whereas if there was an experience to travel somewhere or go and eat somewhere nice, that's something for me. But otherwise, in purchasing things, I'm probably a bit frugal. I'm a bit frugal. And when I look at her wine and her spending habits, she's actually similar to me in that regard. And when I look at what the why for her, it's because she grew up in very difficult financial circumstances, and she really wants that security. She never wants to end up in that situation again. And so splurging on big things when your security is not the focus, like is not being focused on, is just moving in a different direction. So that's why she comes from there. And then similarly, I also came from pretty humble beginnings. And so I definitely value security over financial abundance. And so that's an area where we're automatically like on the same page. And so that's love maps. And I think, well, okay, well, how does love maps apply to business? Like, what's that? How can that be connected? When I think about it, it is. In business, you'll have the founder or the visionary or business owner, and they create a vision for their business. And that might seem a bit fluffy, like, oh, they have a vision or a mission statement. Like, why is that important? It's so important because if everyone doesn't know where they're going to end up someplace else. And if they clearly communicate that vision, it means that other people can, in their everyday behaviors, they know where we're trying to end up. So they can come up, they can drive initiative. They can say, oh, I had this idea about this thing. Maybe we can do this. And it means that less energy is wasted and everyone's rowing in the same directions, as opposed to, if they don't know where they're going, they might be going over here and someone's doing this and someone's doing that. And so they can all contribute and come up with the common, get to the place they need to go faster, and they can all contribute. So yeah, visions and how that connects to love maps, the final piece.
And it is so powerful, especially in times of crisis, like when you have to hang on to something. If you connect to that vision, then it makes it easier to say, okay, how do we come together and go in that direction? And for a lot of my clients who are divorced, that's where they got lost. They got together, they decided they were going to travel together, and then they decided they would buy the house, and then they decided to have kids. And now the kids are teenagers, and now they don't know. They don't have projects together. They might have some personal projects, but they don't have a vision together. And that's usually where they grow apart.
Wow.
And so that's so important to keep that love map or that vision, that goal, whatever it is, together, so that we keep growing together. Because for me, essentially, the purpose of a relationship is your personal growth. You just do it together. But so you need to head in the same direction, because obviously if you have one who wants children and like a very stable kind of life and the other one who wants to travel the world, that's going to be challenging unless you really do want to work on it and make it work for both of them. But you have to have that vision of what are we creating together and what do I bring to the equation to make it work. And the same in a business, like where are we heading to, what tools do we need, what skills do we need to bring that vision to life. So it's extremely relevant. I love it.
And so for me, just watching that video was like an eye opener. I'm like, wow, some of it sounds so simple, but yeah, when I look at my life in terms of relationships and business, I was like, wow, these things totally line up. So that's definitely worth a watch from my perspective. That's
awesome. And I do that all the time. So I have a wellness coach, I have a business coach. And when I have a breakthrough in one area of my life, I'm just like you. I'm like, how does that translate in my relationships? How can I apply that? How can I draw the learnings from that and teach that to my audience? So I absolutely love what you shared today, Lloyd.
My pleasure.
So is there anything else you'd like to share? Any more wisdom or... Yeah.
Well, look, for me, that video was an eye-opener. So if you want to see it, just head to YouTube. And it wasn't a dull video. It's so well presented, and it's called "Making Marriage Work" by Dr. John Gottman, and it must have a lot of views. It's quite old, but clearly it's a classic. So I'd really recommend that. If you want to understand a bit more about what I do, my business is Virtual DOO. It's the pun. And I've got this book, 9 Ways to Leave Your Day-to-Day Operations. And I'm actually giving it away for free as a PDF. You can buy it in print on Amazon, but if you go to my website, virtualdoo.com/book, you can just download the PDF for free. And if you want to talk to me and see if there's any way that I can help you, then just reach out to me by my website, virtualdoo.com.
Thank you so much, Lloyd, for all your wisdom in life and business. And yes, if you want to connect with Lloyd, go for it. He's an awesome dude, and he's definitely going to help you skyrocket your activities. So thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Have a great day.